Welcome to Wasteland Radio. I am your DJ today, the Awkward GM Corbin. You might have just finished watching the Fallout TV show with your bobblehead and your lunchbox, and you might be wondering, is there a Fallout role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons? Well, I'm here to tell you that there is, and it was created by Modifius, and please check it out. It also has a wide range of tabletop miniatures if you're into that too. But let's just get into the nitty gritty of what the Fallout universe is and what the rules are like. The Fallout universe has been around for a long time. In fact, it was a game back in the 90s. Now, the setting itself is set 200 years after a nuclear holocaust in a 1950s inspired 2077. Now, this aesthetic is very similar to things you might see in The World of Tomorrow or Tomorrowland in Disney. And it has this like post-apocalyptic feel with a dark comedy backing to it. Now, the world is full of raiders, which are people who've just gone crazy and start killing people and pillaging whatnot. You have the super mutants, who are these types of genetically engineered creatures with something called a forced evolutionary virus that has turned them basically into orcs or Klingons, but with a lot less intelligence. And then you have a bunch of mutated creatures roaming around. Now, the world was on the precipice of war to begin with before this nuclear holocaust occurred, and some people took to hiding in these last bastions of humanity known as the vaults. We won't get into them too much here, but if you really want to get into it, you can watch the TV show, or you can play the video games, or you can watch any of the lore videos that are around YouTube. There are millions of them. Character creation is pretty simple. You start off with the origin, which can be Brotherhood of Steel, Ghoul, Super Mutant, Mr. Handy, Survivor, or Vault Dweller. There might be more of them, but I don't have any of the supplements. This is just the core rules for the moment. Brotherhood of Steel are your technologically based super soldier type people. They are normal humans, but they wear giant power armor so that they can go to toe with bigger threats. Ghouls are people who got mutated by radiation, which caused them to live longer, but also they have their entire faces like melting off, and they basically look like walking corpses. Then you have the super mutants, who are sort of mutated from something called the forced evolutionary virus. They usually only are masculine because the transformation removes all sexual organs from them. They're sterile because they're irradiated to hell. And they're super tall and not very smart and not very charismatic. Mr. Handies are your robots. These usually came from pre-war, but some people have jerry-rigged Mr. Handies. They come in a variety of shapes, such as the nanny and Mr. Gutsy, who's more militaristic. There are a variety of them you can choose from. Survivors, these are people who've been around in the wasteland for a long time. They know what it's all about. And then you have the Vault Dwellers, who are your wide-eyed optimists who've been underground in one of those Vault Tech issued vaults and don't really know what the outside world is like. Now, you have to assign your special attributes, which all start at 5. You get 5 bonus points to allocate across these attributes. However, you can reduce your attributes to 4 if you want to get more points in somewhere else, but you can't reduce it below 4, sadly. Now, there are skills that you can take. They all start at rank 0, and you can choose 3 of them to be your tagged skills. These all start with 2 ranks initially, and then you have 9 plus your int value of ranks to allocate to other skills or any skills that you've decided to tag, up to, I think it's 6. Yeah, it is 6. And you can then choose a perk so long as you have the prerequisites for that perk, which could be having an attribute at a certain level or a skill at a certain rank. There are some derived stats for carry weight, initiative, defense, health. The only thing I'd like to call out is that initiative is not a dice roll. It is actually a set statistic that you use, so it's not going to change unless you use your luck ability to change it later on. Additionally, you are going to have starting equipment that's based on your origin or on what tag skills you have taken. Now let's go into the mechanics, which are a lot easier than what this may seem. So how do you play? Well, when you're trying to do a skill check, such as hacking a terminal, your game master will say the terminal has a difficulty of 1, let's say. Then you say, okay, my intelligence plus my hacking skill equal about a 7. So when you roll your 2d20, you are looking for a result of 7 or less. Each roll under that target number grants you 1 success, and it gives you 2 successes if you roll natural ones or if it's under the tag skill value. So for instance, if my intelligence is 5 and my skill is 2, if I roll a 1 or a 2, I actually get 2 successes instead of 1. If I roll a nat 20 on either die, it adds a complication, which could be something like, oh, I picked the lock, but I set off an alarm or something like that. If the number of successes equal the task, it means you were successful in hacking a terminal or picking a lock. Else, it fails. So you break the lock pick, the terminal locks you out, things like that. Now, you can spend extra successes that are over the target number or over the difficulty value for additional bonuses, such as reducing the time to do the task, to do extra damage, or other benefits. My advice on how to run Fallout is the scavenging rules that they have for like loot tables and things like that are really cool to know, but they aren't necessary. If you want to do that stuff before a game session happens, it's great for like doing some prep work and having something to do in between games, but it's not necessary. Think of the wasteland or like the world of Fallout as its own dungeon. It's not room to room. It is literally point of interest in the wasteland to point of interest in the wasteland. So if you're at a settlement and you're going to another settlement, you want to cover the traveling between those settlements a little bit. You don't always want to fast travel because then the players will miss out on finding that red rocket that has a full suit of power armor in it and a crazed inventor saying that they have figured out how to make Nuka-Cola into fusion cores or something like that. I also think that you should probably pick a location you know. For instance, I would probably pick the Boston area, which thankfully has a Fallout game, but I grew up in New Jersey, so maybe I would do my hometown in New Jersey, or maybe I do the college town I was in Manchester, New Hampshire, which honestly would be a perfectly fine place for post-apocalyptia. Don't be afraid to make adjustments, though. For instance, Fallout 3 changed the Brotherhood of Steel and from what it was originally in Fallouts 1 and 2, and is a lot more lawful good than the lawful neutral types in Fallout 4 and Fallout 1 through 2. Also, I would say you really want to like hit humor in Fallout a little bit. Like the craziness of the wasteland is the draw for the setting, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. If you want to go a different way, feel free. The Dunwich Borers are a series of missions that are literally Call of Cthulhu in Fallout. So you can always do something different depending on your setting and what your players want. So me personally, when I run Fallout, I would definitely have my players be newcomers to a settlement who are trying to help establish it, protect it, and maybe do some investigating of the local area just to make sure everything's all right and there's resources that you can get to the settlement. This is the type of thing like, oh, we might need someone to do trading in our town, or a farmer. Can you go out and look for people who might be willing to join us in our settlement? Initially, I think the enemies would probably be animals, but then move on to raiders when I need to establish a more serious threat. And then from there, the raiders might be sort of like the onset of a bigger threat. Maybe the raiders are working for someone like the Enclave, who are a more technological driven faction that has a lot more sway in the area than just a normal gang might have. Or it could be that maybe the Brotherhood of Steel are in the area as well, and they're willing to assist the players, but in exchange, the settlement loses a lot of its autonomy? Something about autonomy. If you're looking for some actual plays in this system, look no further than Fallout Rogue Radio and War Games News Radio with their Fistful of Neutrons. Honestly, I really like the War Games News Radio one the best, but that's just my personal preference. I was very sad when I looked up for Fallout RPG actual play, and the first one that came up was a D&D homebrew that someone did. Please, people, there are a lot of good role-playing games out there and a lot of good settings. You don't need to just put them in Dungeons and Dragons. Congratulations, you got this far, and if you liked what you see, there is a Patreon where you can support the channel, or if you don't have the money, you can always just check this playlist of all the games that are not D&D that I've reviewed. Shout out to our patrons for supporting the channel.